we go. Look at, I'm trying to like not have my crap like show in the video, but whatever.
I know, me too. If you see, I tucked everything over in the corner.
There's too much shit on my desk right here. I have to move it.
Yeah, that extra 5 minutes helped me clear my desk, and I set up some subtle props. That's my dad base jumping at Yosemite, and I got a little sugar alpha happening right here. I didn't know where the conversation was going to go, so yeah, little branding.
I looked for my PD shirt, and I couldn't find it. I'm like, crap, whatever, PD. Oh my God, Melissa Nelson Lowe, I love you so much. Thank you for doing it so much. This is awesome. I like to just jump in because just, let's just go. No need to wait. Start.
Right.
Basically, where I want to start with you is I think most people in the skydiving world and the whole universe know who you are and your story. But given a lot of this is for young jumpers and new people, and just if there are people out there that don't know your story, start and give us sort of the bullet points, because I know otherwise it'd be like it's really long, but just try to give us the short bullet points of your story and skydiving, kind of where you are today.
Okay. Let me.
Yeah.
Ready, we're going. It's happening right now.
This is happening. Okay. We're not cutting. This is a raw and real situation. I don't edit this. It just goes. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So from the beginning, I guess the place I'd like to start is my dad was a pioneering skydiver named Roger Nelson. He was a fierce person in this sport, a character that people still talk about today. And that was my role model, mentor, and of course my dad. He taught me how to skydive when I was 16. So that's when I did my first solo free falls. Prior to that, I did my first tandem jumps about the age of 5, did about 11 tandems by the age of 11. And then I did my first solo jump at the age of 16. And by the time I turned 19, I was skydiving and making money, and I realized that I could totally ditch the corporate ladder and going to college, because I found my way that I was traveling around the world teaching people something that I learned to love. I didn't grow up wanting to fly or having this innate desire like Peter Pan.
Right.
Because it was my life. It was everything. So even though when I made my first solo skydive at 16, because that's the one I remember most, I remember coming down and went, this is why my dad loves this sport. But every time I was at the door, I was literally clinging myself out of the door. And in my head, my dialogue was, I don't have to do this because my dad does this.
Right.
And every time I left the plane and landed, I was like, let's go again.
Oh my gosh. I mean, that's huge. I would guess that's a huge thing, and not everybody has that experience. A lot of people find skydiving and they're just blown away and their head explodes, which is amazing. But I have a similar story. My dad's not a skydiver, but he's a pilot, in a drop zone. So it's a similar thing where it's like this familial influence at a young age, where you're like, oh, I can skydive. I could have gone skydiving when I was 16, but I was too scared. I wasn't ready yet. So I went when I was 18. But similar, not as significant an influence as yours, but that's pretty cool. So go on.
So it took me a while to fall in love with skydiving, but by the age of 19, I was making between 500 and 800 jumps a year, and really thought that I didn't want to work in a cubicle. I wanted to be free. I love the idea of traveling around, and this is before social media ever hit. It was a true, authentic feeling that I grew into. And I remember growing up in skydiving, I did the whole, I was a packer for a little bit, but that totally sucked for me. I was fast and no one really taught me how to pack. So I always felt like I was going to pack a malfunction. It was very stressful. So I found working in Manifest was a lot more my personality. I'm social, so I got to talk to a lot of skydivers. But then I was working in the office all the time, and my dad said the only way I could get out of working in the office if I became an instructor. And so it took me a little while to gain the time in free fall. The requirements when I got mine was a lot stricter than they are today. And so I finally, what's that?
What was the difference? What were the requirements then versus now?
Oh my gosh, this is like.
I mean, I don't know either. You don't need to know. Just curious.
There was a lot. I think you had to have more time in free fall. I don't remember if there was a jump requirement. It was 17 years ago, so it was a little while. I just remember the change.
Just remember it's stricter and it's different than it is today. Yeah. So keep going.
So once I got the requirements, it took me, I think I failed 3 courses before I finally passed my course. Yeah.
I can't even imagine that.
I think things are, the way the AFF courses go now to become an instructor are a lot different than it was back then. And I think that I failed because I was a free flyer, and this is before free flying was accepted as a sport. So I was coming up there with my pink, shiny silver jumpsuit, and blonde, young, curly hair.
Yep.
And they're like, who's this girl?
Yeah, right.
So I struggled. Yeah. So it was personality, and even though I felt that I could outfly the examiners, that they made me work for it. And I realized now, looking back, I totally wasn't ready.
Right.
And getting ready to publish my dad's next book with a bonus book, I have found my videos of when I was trying to get my AFF rating, and I watch now with the experience I have, and I was like, yeah, I totally wasn't ready.
Yep. So interesting.
I was like, they're not get this because.
Oh yeah, no, I remember when I
did that. And then I thought,
rating, which
they're
was
not letting me.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I thought they were making me fail because I was Roger's daughter, and that it was this huge conspiracy, not based on skill. But looking back, I was like, yeah, okay, they were probably right, but I don't think I deserve to fail 3 times.
Oh my gosh, it is interesting how looking back we can reflect on like where we are. It almost makes me think this past weekend was safety day at Cross Keys. I went down there having this discussion about downsizing and this and that, echoing one of the talks that was given at PIA and going through that information for the younger jumpers. And it's interesting that how the mindset changes occur over our time in the sport. Like back then, okay, you were like, I got this. I can outfly these fucking guys, like, and you probably could on some level and whatever. And it's also really interesting and cool to hear you say that even being good back then, you can see like, okay, they actually did have some insight into my current skill level and that particular discipline that I was trying to learn and whatever. Like, I think I'm echoing that as a point that was impressed in this particular seminar this weekend, as like, people always think it's not going to be them. They're the ones that can handle the canopy sooner than what people say. Not that it's just a slightly parallel situation, just to echo that the mindset as we grow in the sport does evolve as we learn and grow in our experience. But anyway, keep going.
Yeah. So to, I guess, fast forward through time, I became an AFF instructor, and I racked up a huge number of jumps, learned a ton being an instructor. If you want to learn more about skydiving, I think when you start teaching and you have to explain these things that just become innate, just make you a better skydiver. And then I started free fly load organizing and then coaching, traveling around the world. And then I met Amy Shemalecki and Jen Key, and we created, so we created the first all-female free fly team in the open class. And I think still to this day, there's never been an all-female free fly team in the open class. And we traveled around for several years coaching, competing, and that was another great way to gain skill, experience, is to be on a team. That just catapulted where our levels were. To have someone dedicated to jump with you and then have goals and try to reach them, absolutely phenomenal experience. And then creating a stronger bond and love for the sport. I continued, let's see, the next big thing was over the years I've accumulated several medals in the discipline of freestyle, free fly, 10-way.
Yes.
And, I have 18 world records in the disciplines of wingsuit, upright, free fly, all women, and belly flying.
So wait, so you have a little bit of experience is what you're telling us. As much? A little.
Yeah,
I mean, you might know what you're talking about, kind of.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. You know, it's awesome. Like, it's obviously I know you. Obviously, I've looked up to you. It's so funny, the phenomenon. I say this a lot. I'll say it very briefly because I feel like I say it every time I talk to anyone who I think is amazing, is that I remember looking up to you. And now I'm just like, I can't believe this girl's my friend for real. I'm like I still have moments where I'm like, what? So, but I know. It's whatever, love fest, don't care. Hopefully people watch through are laughing. Yeah, so I know your story because obviously I've followed you my whole career and all that. It's just such a amazing example of what's possible over time is what you've accomplished in your career. And why I wanted to make sure people heard that is just in case there are new jumpers out there that are like, who is this girl? You know, I don't know the last time you were on a cover or whatever, but like, you know what I mean? So I just want to make sure people knew that and know that what you are doing, because we'll talk about more what you're doing and stuff so that they know who you are and that they can listen to you and respect what you have to say and also trust what you're saying in terms of education and influence, which is totally part of what this is, I think, is that I want to showcase people that then the younger community can know they can trust and feel safe and learn from and all that good stuff. So cool. Oops, sorry.
Awesome.
I have to decline a phone call. Popular. Okay, next question. I want to ask, what is something that most people don't know about you? Just for fun.
I'm a bad driver.
Oh my God.
Seriously. I know, my husband, I've always convinced myself that I was a really good driver because I'm a really good skydiver. I totally wear my seatbelt all the time, and I can't park worth shit.
I love it. I always say I'm a one-trick pony.
Oh my God, I'm a little embarrassed to
admit, oh my God, I'm drive like a grandmother. I do. I drive like a grandmother. I set it on cruise control on the speed limit. I'm not joking. This is not me just trying to sound like I'm like you. I've gotten speeding tickets in the past and I am reformed. I literally press the cruise control on the speed limit and I don't care. People think it's hilarious because they're like, seriously? My sister, she's like, oh my God. So you just basically started working with the amazing James LeBerry and the Drop Zone marketing team, which is super amazing. Now, I recall you saying in an interview or maybe to me or someone else that it was your dream job. Maybe it was in a blog post actually that James put up. Why is that? Well, or tell us about what you're doing and then tell us why it's your dream job.
Yeah, I think what we didn't cover in the intro is that when my father passed away in 2003 and he had built Skydive Chicago. So in 2003, leading up to that point, my dad had me doing a lot of behind the scenes event planning, marketing, bookkeeping, all this behind the scenes stuff that people don't realize what happens in a business. So not only was I doing behind the scenes, I was in the front end doing customer service, office management. I was an AFF instructor, just definitely dipping my toe into every aspect of a DZ. I took over the drop zone with my brother in 2003, and I love my brother, but I think doing business in family is really difficult, especially the two of us we're both alpha personalities, and something had to give. So in 2006, I left running Skydive Chicago, and I've worked for several drop zones. I worked out at Skydive Hawaii, Skydive Utah. My husband and I attempted to run a drop zone here in Moab, where we're located right now. Then I worked at Skydive Arizona for a little over 2 years as the events and marketing coordinator. So I have a lot of experience, not just traveling around as a load organizer, which I've done internationally. I've met so many different people. I have feel utilized. And working for James Labari, this is what he does independently. Why it's a dream job for me is that I don't have to be anchored to one drop zone, and that I can help. My skills are being utilized for a lot of different drop zones. And it feels really good because for me, it's a way to give back in the sport because I'm not jumping as much as I like to. And it's awesome. It's very rewarding because I came from a family drop zone and you do things one way. And then when you go to a different place, not just in skydiving, it's everywhere, right? When we go to a different drop zone as a fun jumper to boogie, look at stuff, oh my God, this is awesome too. You just learn so much and gain so much experience. So for me, it's a dream job because I get to be utilized for the experience and knowledge that I have.
So awesome.
And James is awesome.
Oh my God. You guys all are awesome, but I feel like it is like what we said in email the other day, that it's like the world is going to burst into flames because of the combusting awesomeness that's occurring in one. Luckily you're working remotely. And so that's the world's probably safe for the moment, but yeah, it's so cool. So cool. Yeah, it's so great, right? When we find ways to expand our skill set and our gift. And I hesitate to ever use life coachy terminology that could come across as sort of fluffy and without actual substance. But really, you have this gift. You have a breadth of experience and a passion for that's clear, and an ability to execute and inform and educate other people. It's just really cool that you can use that for a wider audience, and again, not to talk about myself, but whatever, it's part, I guess it adds value. I'm always so wanting to.
That's what we do.
I'm so bad at this. But it's like what I'm doing with the virtual skydiving center, the virtual coaching group, skydiving coaching group that I'm doing. So I've always been called mostly to really give back and coach younger jumpers. It's my favorite thing to do. I've been on world records with you. Love it. All about it. I've done all those cool things, not to the extent you have, but I love that as well, and I embrace that level of leadership. And I also just simply am excited to embrace that I can reach a wider audience as well through the idea that modern technology allows so much more and allows us to reach people in a still really valuable, usable way. It's so exciting. So I just love that for you. Next thing I wanted to ask you is, and this might sound like a totally boring question, it's sort of on the life coachy side of things, but I'm curious how you balance your life being a mother, a wife, an author, an employee, a teammate, an all-around ridiculous, insane badass, etc. How do you balance your life?
Whew,
or don't you? What's the story there?
My life is crazy, and I don't think I know how to have a normal, boring life. I'm uncomfortable being bored.
Yeah.
I get too much in my head, and yeah, I feel, man, I don't know how I got to this point. I really don't, but I remember one day when I was giving a speech for Toastmasters, because of my copious amount of spare time, I go to Toastmasters every week. I had to give a speech, and I think one of them was like an inspiring speech or something, like to get people to take an action. And in coming up with the content for that speech, I was trying to figure out how I do balance my life, because on the outside, and people tell me all the time that it's crazy, I need to take more time for myself. But for me and how I built this, that is me taking time for myself. And I noticed the thread in my life is that when I'm idle, I'm depressed. I think too much. And skydiving used to consume all of my life, all of my time. And it was a perfect substitute that I can be giving back to people in this sport and do something I enjoy. And then when I removed that full time in my life, I had to figure out how to fill this time.
Yeah.
And in filling that time, I decided to take on projects, because I don't like long-term things.
Yeah.
I like things that have a definitive beginning and end, because I get bored really easy too. So it takes a lot for me to keep myself. I love to continue to learn. I equate my success and my energy to two different things. One, I've got to keep moving. I always got to keep moving. If I'm standing in my kitchen wondering what the next step is, and there's a pile of dishes, I fucking do the dishes.
Nice. Yes.
If I'm not inspired by what's happening, it's a cloudy day and I'm not outside, I just have to do what's next. The sheets need to be washed. I got to sweep the floor.
Yeah.
Or if I can get outside of myself enough, go for a walk. Just I have to keep moving, because once I'm idle, it's over. And then it takes me so much more energy to get motivated again.
Gotcha.
The second part of that is my husband.
Oh.
My husband is absolutely incredible, and he inspires me, and he's the same way. He's a constant ball of energy, and he's moving, and I emulate that into my life. And that's how I've been able to bridge that success. And some people might feel that it's running away from facing whatever, but for me, my meditation is in motion.
Running away from facing thoughts that would come up in idleness or something?
Yeah, so I have, my thread in my life is depression.
Okay.
I can spin out of control and get myself into a place where I'm too fat, I'm not pretty enough, and I'm not as good a skydiver as I want to be, and I'm not giving back, I'm not worthy. I mean, I have no idea where these thoughts come from. And I don't agree with them, but they kind of like appear out of nowhere. So for me, when I'm moving, I'm feeling good. And I don't know if I created a foundation in the beginning where I need this stimulation, or if it's always been a part of my genetic makeup. But I found that those are the things that keep me happy.
Yeah, that's
so awesome. I'm able to have. Yeah. So, but let me tell you, having a kid is not easy. It's not easy. And I'm not a big advocate. Everyone should be having babies. I'm exhausted.
Before we go forward into more, because first I want to acknowledge and validate, like, obviously I am a life coach. For those of you who are watching that don't actually know that I am a life coach as well, that what you just talked about, the mindset stuff, or the I'm not good enough, the very sort of the defeating thoughts, those are so ubiquitous and normal. Like, it is really, really, really normal. What I love that you showcased just there is that you've found an approach and multiple approaches that work for you, which is what counts. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, okay, you can dive into it, and I always encourage people to get therapists. It's not like I don't have any idea if you've done that or not. And it's not that you need that. But my point is that I say that for personal growth, there's loads of avenues for people to address that experience of depression, that experience of, feeling low and unmotivated. And it's just great that you have pathways that work for you to keep you in a high contributory state, which it sounds really fulfills you. Again, it's like your work is clearly contributing in a major positive way. And I think it's awesome that you shared that with us, because I think so many people who look up to people like you think probably that you never have any issues at all. Oh, she's just super successful. She must be happy all the time. That's not how it works. We're human. We're human. So I love that. Like, thank you for that courageous share, because I feel like that is going to be so supportive to people who hear that and go, oh my God, okay, cool. It's not just me. Okay, there is something. Maybe I can just go for a walk and see how it helps me. And that definitely helps me. Like, being in motion helps me as well. There's a quote that I love. I forget who said it, but it's something like, nothing tranquilizes the mind or steadies nothing helps tranquilize the mind in a good way than a steady purpose. And so, like, I feel like that implies motion in a direction that matters to us. So it's not necessarily just like I don't think it would be fulfilling in life if we just, again, this really just depends on people, but like the steady purpose. Anyway, I'm sort of rambling, but you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah, absolutely. It took me a really long time to figure out the pieces of that puzzle. I really had to struggle and fumble. Another thing that a lot of people don't know about me, and I'm feeling really free and open and comfortable right now. So you guys are getting it.
Yeah. Real leadership, my friend.
What a lot of other people don't know, and this is definitely a private journey of mine, but I'm a sober and recovering drug addict and alcoholic. And skydiving is a very enabling environment. It's a very private, people are accepting, and you just get to do your own thing, which is great. However, I really wasn't built in with tools to handle that. And I didn't know how to escape that. And it definitely took me down a very dark road. But I was a really good actor in trying to make everything look good. So a lot of people that didn't know me really well were like, wow, I had no idea you had a problem.
Right.
The people who really, really knew me, they were like, oh, thank God you're getting help.
Good. Good.
So, but I'm working on, I think, 13 years clean and sober.
Oh, girl, that's amazing. Yeah, amazing.
It's probably one of the hardest journeys that I've ever been on, but it has shown me not that I'm just sober and I can do it, but I did the work behind it. And if someone were to have told me in the beginning that there was going to be all that work, I would have been like, fuck this.
No way. Thank you.
Right?
Personal growth in any capacity. I feel like really people don't understand the agony it actually entails, but that agony delivers us understanding of ourselves, our capabilities, what is possible in life and in us. I'm moved. Thank you. It's awesome. Because I just really feel like, especially in the day and age of the easily marketed life and the easily marketed Facebook, because I'm not going to and I think it's normal for people not to want to post when they're sad on Facebook, not to use that as a platform to, work through their stuff. And so therefore it is, of course, a skewed share. And then there's this idea or this propensity to think that people's lives are devoid of challenge, or that they are all emotionally balanced or whatever. But the real truth is that in a really positive way is that, and I go back to, it is so normal, and that there are pathways, there are always things available for us to do. There are always people available to help us when we find ourselves in a struggle or a challenge that is either like yours or like mine. I mean, again, it's like, I liken my, because I'm not a recovering alcoholic or anything like that, but I did go through a divorce. And it was really agonizing. It was excruciatingly painful. And I needed professional help. And I'm grateful I got it. Mm-hmm. I'm so grateful. I'm like Phoenix fucking rising, man. Like, and it's because I did that work, not for any other reason. Not because I'm just this positive person and I lucked out genetics with my genetics. It's that I think I love the idea of encouraging people to buy into that they can do the work for themselves too, whatever their challenges look like.
Yeah, that's a thing. Like also with social media, it looks like things are instant. You see all the pros posting these badass photos, especially with the wingsuiting and stuff, and people are like, "Man, I'm gonna 200 jumps and blah. I'm gonna be like proxy flying too." And the thing is that the pros are the ones that put in all the time and work, but that's not everything you see. Once you get into a sport, you learn who the people are, you click on their profile page, you see they're badass, but you don't see all the time that it takes. And I think that's one of the things that I really enjoy as an athlete. People don't always see skydivers as athletes, but every sport is mental. Yep. And once you hit that part where you're in it and you're learning, something different starts to happen to you. And it's for those people, it makes skydiving click for them. But if you're trying to get over and try to be that tunnel dynamic badass and it's just not happening for you, that's the point of where you really start exercising your mental aptitude. If you can slow down, be humble enough, get coaching, put the time in, find your finances, whatever you have to do to make it happen. Yep. Because if it's something you really want, you've got to put in the time, not only just the work.
That's so true. So true. Time in the sport matters. Time in the sport matters. Absolutely. No question about it. It's funny. This is perfect because the next thing I wanted to ask you, sort of back to the skydiving side of the house, because this is intended, it's intended for the sport at large for sure. And it's intended for the world at large for sure. But I like to always ask about young jumpers. Like, what advice would you give a young jumper who's just sort of after getting their A license? Like, what's something you would give them as advice?
So I don't know if this is going to be advice, or maybe you can take this statement as something and work it into how it could work for you. Is what I see a lot in the sport, and I've seen the trend for a long time, even before social media, is not every instructor is a good instructor. So when you're learning, whether you're an AFF, or you're getting coaching in the tunnel, free fly, or a certain skydiving discipline, wingsuiting, canopy piloting, whatever, just because someone's a pro doesn't make them a great coach or person. Well, yeah, I don't know. Some of them are assholes. And so, I mean, I love everybody, right? Like, I don't really have any beef with anybody, but, you know, I see how many different teaching styles people have, and some people are quite brute. I really believe that there are very few and far between good instructors out there. So when you are a student, even after your A license and you have up to 1,000 jumps, because about 1,000 jumps you start to figure things out, I'm not an advocate of the buddy. I don't like, hey man, I'll sign you off if you give me a case of beer or something. I hate that. Absolutely because it does a total disservice to our community.
I agree.
If anyone bribes you for a sign-off or they take you under the wing with a conditional tie to it, they're not a good instructor. They're not helping you. And that frustrates me so much because that means they don't know how to teach you. And if they don't know how to teach you, then you are not getting the information you need to be safe. Yes. And because of that, it encourages complacency, it encourages the sky godness, it encourages well, I'm friends with so-and-so and they just signed me off. And Like
Yep.
when I hear that, I get so pissed off. I'm like, fuck, man, that means you know nothing.
Yeah.
And I learned that being an AFF instructor and then being a load organizer, it's amazing because now as an LO, I'm dealing with a whole range of experience levels. I can't tell you how many times I've been on a jump and I'm acting as an AFF instructor. Do you know how to hook up your 3 rings? Why didn't you do a gear check? Hey, I noticed you didn't check your handles. Is there a reason why you didn't do that? It's because of the foundation that person was laid at the beginning. And that makes me see that the instructor was lazy or they didn't know how to teach it. So that being said is if you're not getting your needs met, if you feel like you have more questions than you do answers, you can totally ask for another instructor. You can go somewhere else. You can do your research and don't feel like that is the only place for you. And I think that's something because we deal with so much fear in the sport of skydiving, that just adds another level to it. But let me tell you, doing a little bit of more due diligence and researching where you're going to get your needs met, you're going to be a safer skydiver. You'll probably be in the sport a lot longer. And then you'll be able to give back to the new jumper because you have that information. I mean, I've met a lot of people who can't even open the door. I do girls events and I make them do it by themselves. These dudes in the back think I'm being an asshole, but I'm like, no, she needs to know how to open the door by herself. And
Absolutely. That's such a small microcosm of what you're talking about, the opening the door skill. I oddly use that as an example all the time. Oh God, what was I going to say? There was something I was going to add. Is that I think it's typical when people get into the sport because what you're saying, because there's fear and people enter the sport and they start skydiving and they get through that initial phase of fear and inclusion socially such that they're like in a initial comfort zone. So they don't necessarily even have awareness that there could be other people to talk to, nor do they want to seek out other people because it almost, I would guess, feels like this next wave of like, oh, I have to go through that sort of pain point of meeting someone new, of connecting with someone new, of are they going to be trustable? I don't know what I'm doing. So like, I love that you're encouraging people to do that and saying and supporting that action and that effort to meet more people and to get out there with other instructors and to get different voices in your head to discern what the level of education is that you're receiving is great. And it's going to be good for you, that it's not something you have to fear, that any great instructor, awesome person in the sport will embrace that you are coming to them and will be fucking cool to you. So if they're not, go to the next person. Yeah, totally. I'm so with you. Okay, so cool. So on the heels of that, not just young jumpers, given you're so experienced, I can't not ask you for a more broad, sport-wide, applicable advice piece. So like, not just young jumpers, but what's something you would want to or would give for the whole sport as a piece of advice?
So as an instructor, being an AFF, a free flight coach, an LO, I always train people as if they're going to a national level competition or a world record. I'm serious. People don't realize the power as an instructor that has, because I think one of the missing pieces as mentors in the sport is helping reach goals. Let's say they reached a goal. We have to give them a new one. And another thing that I when I'm doing world record camps, especially for the women, the one thing that we noticed when we do the women's world record is that almost every single time we're training a whole new crew of women, and we're doing bigger and bigger skydives, which means that they're less and less experienced doing these bigger ways. Not to say that it's dangerous, but what it's to say is, where did all the ladies go?
Right.
You know? And I don't think any one of us has a true answer. I know Jeanette Lefkowitz of SDC Rhythm has done a lot of research and asked a lot of questions, but I don't know if that's something we'll ever know. But men and women aside, what I really believe in is helping the next person reach that goal and to plant little seeds in their skydiving career. Because once people reach a huge mega plateau, they became an instructor, but they don't have anywhere to use it. Oh, well, man, I achieved a lot. They did a world record. It's so easy to ride that high. You're training, you're on the journey, the climax of the world record, and then poof, it's quiet.
Yeah. Yes.
It's quiet inside. It's quiet on the outside. Like, what's next? So the little seeds I like to plant is, I have 18 world records, right?
Mm-hmm.
Learning never stops. And one of the most amazing things that I really gravitate in skydiving is our disciplines keep growing. So as I am in my day-to-day and I keep moving, the one thing that I noticed as a side effect is that my mind is so stimulated. I keep thinking of new ideas, and I'm not afraid to learn and apply and experiment with them. So one of the projects that I'm working on is called the Kaleidoscope Project, and it's for the more advanced flyers, and it's going to be bridging the things that we see in the tunnel in the sky, but doing it with a lot of people. So I've been building these ideas on a little like scratch pad. I'm like, oh my God, we could totally try this in the sky. So what I'm doing for my 40th birthday party is we're doing the 40-way Kaleidoscope Project, which you're totally invited. And because I really believe in the innovation of the sport, and I believe in projects, I believe in the giving back, that if I can't exercise what I preach about planting seeds to myself, then I'm plateaued, then I stop. Because for me, yes, I keep doing world records and they're amazing and everyone is different and special and it has its own challenges. And I love it because it gets me in that headspace to conquer those challenges. It's different every time. But it's gotten easier over that time. So I still have to find things that challenge myself. So I built the Kaleidoscope Project. I'm also going to put together a boogie. I want to call it the Generations Boogie. Cool. That invites both families in skydiving. So if you're a multi-generational skydiver or tunnel flyer, get us all together and have a forum where we can share stories, because not a lot of people realize how many second, third generation skydivers there are. And we are part of the history. So for me, it's being able to preserve the history of skydiving and then having a reason for us to get together. Yeah. Because it's so awesome to have like-minded people to have conversations with. But it's not going to be an exclusive boogie, because I think it would be so awesome to bring the outside community to meet these families.
Yes.
Right? How awesome is that?
It's so awesome. I mean, it's so awesome. Just to jump in really quick about the history, that it's really cool. Like, I've been sort of starting to work with this pioneer project of interviewing the pioneers of our sport. Like, I too I'm with you in the terms of like fascinated by our history, but caring about supporting it, like the museum and like really the effort to your book, Sugar Alpha, like caring about putting our history in such a, like caring about our history in such a way that it's preserved, it's respected, it's consumable, it's all of those good things. Like, I love being a part of that effort as well. So yeah, go on.
Yeah, so the next step for me too is I'm planting seeds, and now here it's happening right here, right now with Melanie Curtis. Is I'm really thinking about running for national director, because that is just another level of giving back to the sport. And I'm wrapping up finishing my second book, Sugar Alpha Volume 2. There'll be an added bonus book, Volume 3, to that as well. That'll hopefully be all done this summer. My plan is to launch that book at Summerfest. And then make it a movie, which those plans are in play right now too. And my husband asked me, he goes, okay, now that all this stuff is going to be like, you're on the horizon of finishing a lot of huge projects, what's next? I'm like, shit, I'm going to find a way to fill this time.
Practice what I preach. Shit, I gotta leave that example. Damn. Just kidding. Just kidding. That's so awesome. I love that he's got your back, that he knows what you stand for, that he knows what motivates you, and is in that process with you and in that conversation. That's fucking excellent. I love that.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Said that. I love it. Well, girl, I mean, I feel like we just have talked about so much, and it's so much value. We can always do more of these. Is there anything today that you would want to deliver? You know, like what else? Is there anything else you want to share before we hang up today? Or tell us what's going on other than, I mean, yeah, that rambling. I gotta get better at interviewing. That's one of my goals.
One thing that I love about skydiving that I've found, I cross-train in different sports as well. I've done paragliding. I'm a pilot. I was trying to do marathons, but after my first 15K, I realized it was the stupidest thing I've ever done in my life.
I've done one, and I loved it. And everyone's like, you're going to be a marathoner now? I'm like, no. But I love that people are into it. Like, if people are into it, that's fucking awesome. I'm totally a fan. It blew my mind, and I'm like, no, for me, it's going to be a singular experience, and I'm going to move forward to a new goal and a new experience. Yeah.
I asked, so here's the thing. In a lot of these sports that generate a lot of money, it is really hard to reach the professionals and pioneers in our sport. And oh my gosh, my mind's going in 10 different directions.
I know, it's okay. We have time. Take your time.
So bear with me. So the different directions are, the important thing is to cross-train in our sport, because if you cross-train and don't completely obsess yourself in skydiving, you will only be a better athlete, and your longevity in skydiving will be there. It is such a huge investment to be a skydiver. I always think about someone's longevity into it. I think if you can push past that 5-year mark, you most likely will be in the sport for a while. And then if you can hit, 7 or 8 years, you're going to be the next leader of the sport. And I think it's really important to build in the next generation for them to be leaders. The next thing about our sport, talking about how reachable we are, I attended my first Hall of Fame last year at Skydive Arizona, and I was working it. I had no idea. I was so naive to how vast our sport really is and how captured our sport really is, that this is a platform where we can preserve our history. But here's a very special thing about it, is a lot of our pioneers are still living.
Exactly.
And they go to these events. They are a part of it, and it is so awesome. Like, the first woman that got her D license was there. And I mean, really, seriously, D license number 1, Lou Sanborn is there. They love it. They are just as passionate and crazy for the sport today as they were back then. However, the way they give back is just participating and continuing to tell us stories. Because if you think about the history of human evolution, we told our history. We spoke our history. It wasn't just, we wrote it down for sure, but it was all about the relationships. And skydiving is about relationships. Sometimes I have to shut down social media, even though it's a part of my job, because I love to connect with people. I love to be present with people. And sometimes it's so hard for me to be behind a camera and connecting with people, because once you put that device in front of you, there's an automatic disconnect, whether it's subconscious or conscious.
Yeah.
So yeah, relationships, the history, and keep planting those seeds for the future generation of skydiving. Woo!
Oh, true, girl. Fucking mic drop. I mean, it's like, it's so true though. I mean, and what I can say to that is, like, and we've had this conversation before about taking a break from the sport, because I feel like you have to get to a certain, and again, maybe it's, I don't really know. I don't know everyone obviously in the sport, but like, at least for me, I had to get to a certain point where I needed a break. I had never taken a break ever in like 18 years, so now I'm 20 plus. And I decided I took 2 years off because I had really burned out and all this stuff. And it was because I was working so hard and this and that. And I just sort of kept going relatively unconsciously in terms of my engagement in the sport as I grew as a professional. And trust me, I love the work. I love coaching skydiving. I genuinely love it. I definitely love skydiving itself, but I really love coaching skydiving. And so the fact that I was burned out and this and that, now it's just what's so great about that is that now it's like, oh, I now really feel like I understand truly, deeply, passionately, emotionally what skydiving gives me and how valuable that joy is to me, that I'm willing to fucking protect it by putting in boundaries that work for me around my involvement in the sport, because the sport is that important to me, because the community is that important to me, because my relationships in it and my desire to grow. I mean, again, like even just thinking about what you and I are going to do, not even thinking about anybody else in the sport, which is like so many amazing people, even just like you and me doing some cool shit. I'm just like, it brings joy to my heart, like all those possibilities of everything that we can do. And the reason I say that is to bring consciousness to your involvement in the sport and to bring consciousness to what it brings you and to care about that feeling. And if you're losing it, God, reach out, ask a question. I'll always be willing to help someone who's having a moment of questioning around their involvement. Not that I think taking a break is bad, because I think that's also fine too, obviously.
Yeah, I've taken several breaks myself where my breaks looked a little bit different because I got current for world records.
Right.
I definitely had fear of missing out for sure.
Which is totally fine.
So I love that you make yourself available. My husband and I do the same thing, whether you learn from us or not. I still have people to this day that reached out, whether it's just, hey, I just wanted to let you know this blah worked for me. Thank you for being a part of that. Or they're like, hey, I'm struggling with this. What advice do you have to give? And I'm a busy person, but that kind of stuff definitely sparks me, and it helps me keep that ball rolling and keeping that momentum going in my life, that like, yes, I am here for you. Yeah. And just like you are for them as well.
Oh, it's awesome, girl. Well, we could talk forever, so I'm going to cut us off and say you just have to come back and we'll talk about 80 other things next time. Woo! But God, I love you so much. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for all that you do for all of us, and just I love you so much.
I love you too, Mel.